right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at TNW's Transform Couch Conference. My name is Abhimanyu Ghoshal, and I am TNW's Managing Editor. Today, I'm coming to you from my home base in Bangalore, India. And in this session, we're going to discuss business innovation in 2020. How can your company implement innovation initiatives to ensure long-term success? And how do businesses accelerate innovation efforts with remote teams and new challenges? And can modern tools help? So I'm really pleased to introduce my guests for this discussion today, Andrey, Khusid, and Mahmoudi. So Andrey is the CEO of Miro, which is a collaborative whiteboard platform. Miro has been around in various forms for nearly a decade and is now the tool of choice for more than 5 million customers across the globe, including people at several Fortune 100 companies. And Moodi is the founder and CEO, which offers business design software for teams and is a pioneer of the idea of applying design thinking to business transformation and innovation. Next counts the likes of BNP Paribas, the World Economic Forum, and Deloitte among its customers. Andrey, Moodi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Abhi, for inviting us.
Absolutely. Delighted to be here.
Thanks so much. So we've got a fair bit of ground to cover in roughly half an hour, so I'll get right into it. And for the audience, please feel free to drop your questions for Andrey and Moodi. As the session goes on, just drop them in the chat, and we'll keep picking them up as things move along. All right, gentlemen. So I wanted to start by talking about remote work. Andrey, you've been working on Miro since 2011, and Moodi, you've been running Next since late 2013, with the product launching around 2016. So I imagine you both have been following this space for a long time. Can you all both talk about how remote work has evolved over the past decade in terms of people's mindsets and the kind of tools that people are using? Andrey, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. We definitely see the evolution of this trend. We see that more and more people are start to work remotely or hire people who are in a distributed hubs. And that's a challenge because one thing is, like, when everything is figured out and everyone knows what to do, like, it's easier to manage people being remote. But once you need to come up with new ideas or new solutions, it's really hard to capture that creativity in a distributed environment. And like before, people thought about that, but they didn't operationalize that process. The last several years, we see that strong trend when companies start to operationalize that process, start to understand that there is like no other way how they can operate in a global environment. So the only way is like, okay, we can't get everyone to the same room. So how we can enable people to collaborate and work together. And that trend started to happen in the last several years, but in the last 3 months, it just accelerated dramatically because everyone is working from home. At the same time, companies need to continuously innovate. So, and that's the problem of the modern world. And great that some tools are already on the market that enable people to work that way.
Right on. Moodi, can you talk about this as well? Maybe with with regard to some of the larger enterprise customers that you've been working with.
Sure, absolutely. Everybody, it's a real delight to be here. I mean, remote work in the context of transformation and innovation is a really interesting one. I remember when we started the company, the second you say the word innovation or transformation, people think workshop, ABBA music, and quinoa salad. And and then you go remote, and you're like, what? How do those all go together? And essentially, what you realize is that as functions like innovation or transformation mature in organizations, they move away from event-based activities, really designed to build culture, towards processes designed to create shippable, deliverable products. It becomes real work. The fun, the sexiness, the ABBA music, and the quinoa salad is over. We actually got to do some real work. And the second you start thinking about some real work, you think about what processes do we need? Where does the data reside? What reports do we have? How do we manage this thing? And that's where the real complexity of growing up as a function and as an organization emerges, right? And I think, the fact that, and then the remote thing is an extra layer on top of that, right? The more you are remote, the more you are in a global function, the less you travel to come together for events and these kinds of things. Well, you need to have systems and tools that keep you together, keep the data together, provide the moments of collaboration, provide the moments of convergence. And these are essentially the areas that, Andrey with Miro and us at Next are really focused on in trying to, help companies get there as they move forward towards these ambitious goals that they have in innovation and transformation more particularly.
Right on. Thanks for that. So Moodi, I'll post the next one for you to start with, which is that your company Next offers a business design product, which let me try and articulate this correctly, which is that it essentially codifies practices and processes from this whole new world of business design thinking, and it bakes all that into a cloud app. So for customers that you interact with, how new and novel is this? Like, when you meet a potential enterprise customer, are you selling them first, more on the idea of business design in the first place, or do you feel like you're mostly just having to only sell them on the software?
It's an amazing question, Abby. So I remember when we started the company, even before we started the company, when we were doing the research of, do we even want to start this company? I remember when we would meet enterprise clients, they would essentially tell me, Moodi, if you don't have a hipster beard, aren't wearing a Firefox t-shirt, and don't work in a lab where you play ping pong at 4 p.m. and drink specialty coffee, innovation and stuff is not for you. There was a bit of voodoo, a little bit of a magic around innovation. There's only special people who can do it. If you wear a tie and you work in a bank, forget it, it's not for you. Whereas what you realize is it's not true. Actually, innovation is not voodoo. It's not magic. There have been real science and practices for innovation that have been around since 1969. Like design thinking and lean methodology have been around since 1969. That's the year we put a man on the moon, right? How long it's been. Now, the problem has been that these practices have been locked up in 800-page books for only the luminaries who write about them and then, share them on like real specialized magazines, right? It's not for, average product managers, marketing leaders, product owners, project managers. These people didn't have these kinds of skills at their fingertips. And so our ambition with Next was, how can we take these principles and practices out of 800-page books? How can we partner with organizations like the Board of Innovation, Think, and others who have this knowledge, codify it into a step-by-step process, and then automate the whole thing using software? And, just a fun story, Abby, I remember when we were thinking about our company, I had the chance to meet one of the co-founders of Siebel Systems, who told me, in 1992, when they started the first CRM system, sales was a bit of voodoo too. You remember you would hire salespeople. I don't know if you've ever seen the Alec Baldwin movie, ABC, Always Be Closing, right? With the big eye, and salesmanship was like an art. And then CRM came around and said, no, sales is no art. Sales is about discipline, execution, reporting, and measurement. And I can think we all can agree that today sales has nothing to do with an art. It's been automated, rolled out in companies, and that is exactly what we ambition to do to innovation and transformation with Next.
Right on. So, Andrey, I'll throw this to you to follow up with in your experience. So, with Miro, and for those of you who may not have seen the product before, it's a whiteboard that you can collaborate with other people on in real time. So, Andrey, the question for you is: do your customers, do they already know what they need to do with a new tool like Miro, and do they think about it as just replicating real life whiteboards, or is it a whole new way of collaborating, a whole new way of brainstorming and discussing ideas online? What's your experience been?
Yeah, I would say both, because like in pre-COVID world, we saw mostly people who are coming to our product are those who have those frameworks in real life, who use physical whiteboards, or who understand how to run retrospective offline, let's say, or PI planning offline, or design sprint offline. So they take those frameworks, they replicate those frameworks in online world, being a distributed team. So that was kind of a pre-COVID world. And today in COVID world, everyone coming and like everyone will try to understand how to communicate ideas better, how to come up with ideas in online distributed reality. And people have to learn those frameworks. So I would say our platform is used by both, and in one case we're an enabler. In another case, we educate people how they can get most out of this online collaboration tools, because they need to learn the methodology first, what Moodi was talking about, and then apply that methodology on whatever tool they use. And of course, whiteboard is the go-to tool for this type of activity. So that's how we see the audience.
Right, got it. So I've got a question of my own, and I can see one from the audience that's kind of related. So this is about what these tools will kind of evolve into. So something I'm personally curious about. So Moodi, I'm not yet a consumer or user of business design software. So I'd like to understand how you see the direction of your products as you build them. And this, of course, works for Andrey too. Like, if you take the example of, say, Adobe's Photoshop, right? It not only helped replicate a lot of what graphic designers may have been doing already with paper and pens and brushes, but also took those ideas far ahead into the realm of digital image creation, right? So now, when we think of, can we do this image? We're already thinking in terms of what Photoshop actions we need to take in order to make that image come to life. So with that, with that kind of framework in mind, I want to know, what are your priorities for both of you? What are your priorities for your products? Is it more about replicating, real life interactions and conversations, or showing the way forward for new ways of communicating? So, Moodi, would you like to start with this?
Sure. It's very interesting, Abby. Thanks for the question. Essentially, the way we have seen the usage of our product evolve, and I think that's the best way to think about how your product should evolve, right? We started with a solution, saying, hey, we've codified the best practices of design, and here is a kind of a solution out of the box. Now we have thousands of teams now leveraging Next in order to drive design in their organization. We are starting to see quite a variety of design. Meaning design doesn't mean the same thing in a public sector organization that it means in a bank, that it means in a retail company. We're starting to get to the intricacies of the flavors. The other thing we're also seeing is at the skill level, meaning you have the designers, to Andrey's point, the people who have those frameworks, who understand it, who've been doing it offline. And then you have the people who are essentially using Next, and the digital guided experience that they go through Next is the first interaction they ever had with design, right? Which is really different. And so the way we are evolving as our company matures and as customers mature is really going from a solution more towards what I would call a design utility. We're really going away from saying, hey, it's about design software, by saying, no, actually more of a design utility that you can use to apply the principles of design to whatever you want, right? So the way we think of principles of design is strategy, discovery, delivery. Now, I can do strategy, discovery, delivery for a product, a service, an experience, anything, a process, anything for that matter, to be honest. One fun story is that when we were thinking about this, as we were maturing the product, I was showing it to my wife. We recently got married last summer, and she was looking at this, and at the end of my demo, she said, Moodi, we could have design thought our wedding. I'm like, yeah, that's right. That's exactly the point, right? So it's about this concept of going away from being in box towards, for product managers or for project managers or experience managers or service managers, towards saying, hey, anybody should be able to apply design to the entire world that we live in, right? User-centric transformation is very important, and that's what we are trying to go towards as we go from a solution more towards a utility, helping our customers bring their perception, their needs, their way of applying design onto Next.
Right. And so, Andrey, I was thinking about Miro in this respect. My sense is that your product is more general purpose initially, but it also satisfies some very specific needs within functions, like, say, business design, right? Like, within that, people do need to talk, they do need to sketch out ideas and show people something on a screen and have people voice their inputs there. So what's your thought process for crafting Miro for a wide range of use cases and also for fitting into things like this?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I like that Moodi mentioned a CRM before, like Salesforce the leader, because we have pretty the same approach and the same vision, is like to build a platform that people can adopt to any processes, any workflows they have. and also not just adopt within the organization, but also partner with some more problem-specific solutions like Next, for example. And we're really proud that, for example, Next integrated with our platform. We integrated with Next, so we can provide more holistic solution for our customers, mutual customers. So in our case, we have this deeply rooted approach to a product development vertical where the teams have all these rituals around like product increment planning, or running retrospectives, or having design sprints, which is pretty specific to product development. At the same time, the platform approach, we can cover all other communications across the organization, which are like learning development, more general brainstorms, team hubs. So this allows us to be a pretty horizontal solution across the organization. At the same time, we or our partners can tailor specific need of specific function or specific department. So that's our general approach to build the product. Is like the CRM approach, Salesforce approach is something that inspires us for sure.
Right on. And so now I want to hear from both of you about what's coming next to the world of remote work. Like, I think one thing that I noticed just when looking up both Next and Miro is that what you two are cooking up together is this thing of breaking down data silos and evolving your platform, your offerings from products to platforms so that they can play nicely together, right? So can you tell us a little bit more about that in terms of how you're thinking of, okay, this is what Miro is in 2020. What does it need to be in 2025, and what are some of those large-scale ideas that you need to think about? Andrey, why don't you start us off?
It's a great question. It's just like, I don't know how you know about that, but like, right after our conversation, I have a strategic meeting for Miro 2025. So next week, this to the team. Yeah, it's a great catch. So
I caught sight of your whiteboard. So
yeah. So it's like, and then I see in the chat there is a question about privacy and safety. So it's like yeah, we care about that. So hopefully it's just like you just catch the idea. So what we think about is we see the future of our platform as a kind of enabler for all continuous innovation inside the organization. So that's how we see the product. And the major problem, and Moodi highlighted that a couple of times, is like not just how to be creative or how to innovate, but how to move things from 0 to 1. How to understand what's the big problem on the market and how to deliver a solution. And that solution should fit the needs of the user, the customer, be very customer-centric. And the process should be agile, and agile is about mindset, and agile is about the delivery process. So those questions are top of mind for all innovative companies today in the world, and that means for every company in the world, because almost the only one to compete is to continuously innovate and be customer-centric these days. So for us, to build a platform that enables that process is something that we care about. And one of our aspirations is how to make the experience of when you collaborate online better than when you are offline in the same room. So that's one of those aspirations. And that's what drives our roadmap and vision, is like how to make sure that if even people are in the same room, they should open with laptops and collaborate in Miro, not stand in front of the physical whiteboard. Because Miro as a solution, or whatever solution they use, provide them better experience, shorter time to market, sharp ideas, like and very kind of holistic and smooth step-by-step process that they really like want to have, not just random conversations, ongoing conversations for years when they can't make a decision and they can't come up with some solution or idea. So that's what we care about, and that's what drives our roadmap.
Right on. Moodi, any thoughts on Next 2025?
Yeah, so I guess there's two things we're really focused on. I think the first thing we're really focused on is this transition towards a utilities platform, right? Meaning that it's breaking out of the limited number of cases for which we had envisioned people using Next, and as you have thousands of teams, there are customers and users and teams inspiring us. So one is to keep moving towards this utility approach, and of course bringing on amazing partners, right? As I mentioned, a few of them earlier. from a content perspective, people who have methodologies that can bring on to Next in order to embed those methodologies and templates in our software, but also from a technology partnership, building great stuff like what we are doing with Andrey and the team at Miro, which is insanely cool. The other thing that I think is a big trend, and I think the experience we had in early 2020 with the breakout and the pandemic really accentuated, is really the strive towards best of breed interoperable platforms, right? This whole idea that you go to a single vendor, they have everything under the same roof, and you have one neck to choke. I mean, one throat to choke. I mean, right? We're not gonna.
We see you.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, Moodi. Did we lose you for a second back there? We can see you, but I don't know if we can hear you.
Yeah. Happy to jump in, and then.
Oh, sure. Why don't I actually take you, Andrey, into an audience question real quick. This is a fun one. So, do you think VR and virtual workplaces are around the corner?
Yeah, I think that this trend also accelerated a lot, and of course we're looking at that trend because one of those kind of features of augmented reality or virtual reality. I believe more in augmented reality, to be honest. Like, yeah, one of those trends is like how to make the work most productive way. And of course, whiteboard is one of those elements of that augmented virtual reality. And of course, we're looking into that trend. I thought it will kind of come in 3-5 years. But with the COVID, it accelerated, and we see how this core platforms like Oculus, like magically, how they quickly evolve now to meet the trend. So yeah, it's also top of our head. So we can deliver something in the nearest future, so the audience can be productive even in that reality.
Right on. But I mean, this is something I'm curious for someone who's close to the business of building tools. What do you think would be the tipping point? Like, for example, say there are some new VR tools that become available, right? Saying, okay, here's a virtual office space where you all walk in, and I think Microsoft and a few other companies are trying stuff like that. It still looks a bit janky, if I may say so. But what would convince people that, all right, now is the time to actually start investing in it. Now is the time to start doing that, using those tools more than the existing bunch of the Miros and Next that exist on just the one screen. Hey, welcome back, Moodi.
Yeah, welcome back. Yeah, it's a great question. I think that on one hand, companies want to minimize number of tools they're using. They want to have some source of tools. They don't want to manage like multiple licenses and to switch between those tools. On the other hand, like of course, you have to pick up the tools that solve the problem best. So what you care about at the end of the day is like the time to market of what you're doing and the solution possible for what you're doing. So that's what you care about, and you have to pick up tools that allow you to get to those outcomes. So that's kind of my general look at this problem and general advice. Like focus on the outcomes and time to market for those outcomes.
Got it.
Tools, yeah.
Right on. Moodi, I was just asking Andrey about what he thought about VR and virtual workspaces, and whether he could identify some sort of turning point when companies would think about possibly actually investing in that and moving towards those things, as opposed to apps and devices that just use the one screen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if there's one thing I learned with the pandemic is that you never know, changes never stopping and accelerating. So we may sit here and think this is crazy, and in 6 weeks, people are rolling it out enterprise-wide.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I noticed the same trend. So I was surprised when I saw some big companies like Siemens, some other companies, if I'm not mistaken. So I saw some people mentioning on LinkedIn that they start to experiment with those platforms already. It's like these big corporations already start to experiment and see where they can get value. And we know some companies in this world who are serving specific verticals, enterprise verticals, and have some really good traction, for example, in construction. well in some other verticals. So I think it's a matter of like a couple of years to see it more and more like broad adopted among different enterprises and different use cases.
Right on. Yeah. And I want to ask you something. So I actually requested that a poll be set up just ahead of our session so that our audience could tell us about the software that they use for work in their experience. So thank you to everyone who's already answered this question in the poll. So I asked about, what's the software you're using at work? What's that like? And the majority of people said that, they're using both a mix of old and new apps. And so my reason for asking that is that I think for users, I believe there's tremendous value in not just using the apps, but actually getting good at using collaborative tools, right? And by that, I mean, going beyond just knowing which buttons to press. And, I mean things like articulating your ideas effectively, facilitating better brainstorming, outlining, necessary processes to achieve a certain goal or, time to market or something like that. So Moodi, why don't you start us off? Can you talk about how your users' journeys have been in that direction about getting better at next? Like, what is the next a pro user kind of look like? How do they get to that stage where, for example, there's someone who's probably really crappy in a company at doing a presentation with a slide deck. How do you get really good at something that's not just a new piece of software, but also a new framework or a new set of ideas entirely? Can you talk about how your users have been going through that?
Yeah, so sure. I think there's two angles that we are tackling with this. I think the first one we got to observe is that actually our enemy is email and spreadsheets, right? Because that's where the world lives, right? Email and spreadsheets. It's the world of Post-its on whiteboards, right? Physical ones, right? So the first one is that how do you bring them onto a tooling-driven, right, software digitally guided experience? That's the first one. And then the second one, we work really hard to identify the aha moments that the software drives, not from a technology perspective, but in the life of the user. So let me give you one example. When our users do a user interview of one of their customers and they find out something that they did not know yesterday, they fall in love with Next. Right? Those are the moments that we are looking for. It's not about the button and is it rounded or square or whatever, the color of the button. It's about those moments where the user is like, wow, absolute moments of enlightenment and delight, right? That is where the users fall in love with your software and your product. And it's very important to identify those and really make it easy for your customers to hit those value propositions out of the ballpark as they use your software. And creating more and more of those so that they can actually create tremendous value while they're leveraging your product. That's what we really focus on.
Right on. Would you happen to have an example that you can share, or can you tell us about, like, roughly what sort of time frame does it take for someone to get to that stage where they're experiencing that sort of delight and enlightenment?
Well, luckily for us, in the concept of design, discovery comes first. And discovery, typically, just finding out, unpacking the problem, right? Figuring out what's going on. That's step number one. And often, by the way, it's the step that everybody skips because everybody wants to brainstorm and idea storm and all these kind of fun stuff and solution think. And that's why most products go to market and fail because they actually solve no problem or nothing, right? Now, the really cool thing is that discovery is the first one. It's often skipped. And the fact that it's first, it's actually one of the first experiences of a customer with our product. And that's
built in, right?
Yeah, and that's really cool, right? So they don't have to spend a lot of time to get that value and that aha moment. It's right up front, essentially, and that's really, really great.
Interesting. Andrey, do you have something similar to share in terms of, again, how does one go from just using Miro and just like scribbling on a whiteboard online to actually, doing much more with it than they were doing offline?
Yeah, of course. So we have a lot of things that drives that aha moment, and I totally agree with what Moodi said. Is like the question is like how to get people to the outcome as quick as possible, and you have a bunch of enablers and a bunch of things that help that. So, for example, like templates, we have like hundreds of templates inside the product. So you can quick start any product. Or if you have a methodology that is developed inside your company or something that is not presented, you can easily package that and redistribute that across your organization in Miro. Others can can use the methodology built inside the company or outside the company. That's one of those examples. Another is, for example, voting. So you unpack the idea, as Moodi mentioned, and then you have to come up with some solutions. And to come up with the solutions, you have different opinions, and you want everyone's voice to be heard. You want everyone's inputs to be like included. So you run this kind of blind voting things with Miro, and we have all those like functionalities and features to run those blind voting, and you can see what people vote for, why that happens, and you can unpack those kind of like hunches or gut feelings that people have behind. So those elements enable you to have this inclusive, creative, safe, and also kind of like really, as I said, like creative environment where you have the foundations to build on top, is like templates and frameworks, and then you move forward as quickly as possible. So those elements are most critical for customer success.
Right on. Let me take a couple of questions from the audience. I've got a couple of interesting ones here on my screen. So someone's asking us that discipline, commitment, and hard work do not sound like a lot of fun. So how do you get people to actually put in the work, and how do you keep them involved, especially when they're working remotely? So Moodi, why don't you start us off?
I guess that one's for me, because I said we're going to take the fun out of innovation, and people are like shocked. But no, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think, the most amazing fun, the most profound fun you can have is discover something you did not know yesterday, right? When a product manager, when a service manager, an experienced designer discovers something that their user wants or needs and that they hadn't thought of, they didn't even were aware of. That's the feeling of accomplishment that you go home with is amazing. So I think you're right. There is there is hard work to be done. Innovation, as it matures as a function inside companies, it's going to be less about the the hackathons and the workshops and the fun and the culture building stuff, and it's going to become more work. But work can also be tremendously fun and accomplishing. So the idea for us is really bring that sense of accomplishment to the work that people are doing as they're trying to solve problems and build solutions that their ultimate users will love. And that is very cool.
Nice, interesting. Andrey, can you speak to this as well? I'd love to hear your perspective.
I totally agree with what Moodi said. So I think that having the process and having like the right type of like team around this process, that's what makes the kind of the work fun. So you have the right team who is like engaged, committed, disciplined. At the same time, you have like the process behind it, so that you follow and you unpack problems, you discover some insights, you build solutions, and that's a fun thing. So that's where like this aha moments happen. Because if you have like no process, no discipline, you sit in the same room, you can have a lot of fun, but at the end of the day, you will not come up with a solution. You will not come up with something, and then it's not fun at all, because the kind of the worst case scenario, the company will lose, you will be fired, and that's not a fun thing. We want to win. We want to continue to innovate. So that's what I think is like you need the right enablers. You need the right process. At the same time, the innovation is the fun thing to do. Like they should work together, these two elements.
Abby, one thing that I find very interesting. So Andrey and I are connected on LinkedIn, and sometimes a lot of the Miro users very proudly and passionately share their Miro boards on LinkedIn, and Andrey likes a few of them, and I see them. Honestly, when I look at some of these boards, I'm like, these are not fun boards. I mean, they're complicated. There's columns. There's stuff everywhere. I'm like, wow, the level of commitment and passion that is required and discipline to create these beautiful boards, super organized, but yet people had a blast in these boards. So you see, there is an element of both, I think. I guess even fun can be channeled. Fun, systematically fun can also be a process and be disciplined. So I guess that's part of it.
Absolutely, I agree with that as well. Like, I think if you look for the traditional sense of fun in your work apps, they may not be immediately obviously available. I think you have to think about what does fun mean in this new paradigm, and seek out that sort of delight in that space. I'll do one last question, which I think is really interesting. So how, and we'll start with Andrey on this one, how to manage non-cooperatives and anti-collaborators. I have not heard these terms before, but they seem like people have gone through this before. So how do you manage non-cooperatives and anti-collaborators, and how do you transition this behavior now due to remote workspace shifts?
Yeah, it's a great question. I have two answers to this. So first, to be honest, I don't know. So the answer is I don't know, because one of our values and one of our criteria that we pick people to the company is to be a strong collaborator. That's one of two criteria we look at, and one of our core values is play as a team to win the world. So that's extremely important for us. So those non-collaborators, they don't get into the company. So I don't know how to manage them. So that's an answer. But at the same time, if I have to find the solution, I would definitely try to explain why for those people who are not collaborators. Like, because I personally truly believe, and why this value appear is that we in the company believe, I personally believe that the truly innovative solutions come up from the diverse collaborative team. So that's what we believe, and that's what we build the company around. Is like you need to have different opinions. You need to have you need those opinions to be heard, and you need true collaborators who can build on top of each other. So that creates true innovation. And those people who are not going to operate in that way, of course, you need to explain why it's important. If they get it, you can get them into that team. If they don't, maybe they can be better better partners in some other organization. So that's how I think about that.
Sure, thanks for that. Moodi, do you have an experience like this that you can share?
From within the company or at the customer side? Maybe I answer it from the customer side, given that,
sure.
And I completely agree with Andrey's point. Yeah, if you have a strong recruitment process, that type of profile just will never end up inside your company. From a customer side, it's also quite interesting because, of course, that's as a vendor, as a software provider, you control that a lot less, right? Those kinds of behaviors may exist inside companies. I think there's two things that we look at, which is really interesting. The first one is teams very well auto-organized. Right, so typically this is a minority of behaviors that are like this, and teams typically flush those out, right? Because innovation and design is a team sport, very much a team sport. These teams typically identify these kind of individuals, and they get flushed out of the process really rapidly. The other thing which is really fascinating is in design, you have these elements of diverging and then converging. Diverging is very much actually a lone sport. You don't need much collaboration, because if you collaborate, you fall victim to the herd effect, and then you all start thinking the same way. And that's very dangerous, actually. You want wide, broad thinkers, right? And actually, having these diverging, converging sequences really helps companies mitigate against, for example, people who may not be collaborative and wanting to slow down the process or slow down the company, which I've seen as well beautifully. Again, the team auto-isolates them and flushes them out because they just have nothing to contribute to the conversation.
Right. Got it. Hey, that's really interesting. I think we've actually gone past our allotted time, but we were also told that that's okay. I'll ask you one final quick question to wrap up, and this is basically what's on your wish list for a remote tool or a feature that you'd like to see for working with your own company. Do you have anything like that on the list, Andrey?
It's a great question. I'm trying to think what's top of my head. Let me think quickly. So maybe Moodi has something on top of it.
Moodi, do you have something that you're wishing for? That a problem?
How about Miro? How about Miro?
I have one. So
go ahead.
We have a joke here inside Miro. So our mission is to empower teams to create the next big things, and vision is to live in the world where teams can co-create. So we believe that our mission and vision will be accomplished when people invent teleport, but we want people to invent teleport inside Miro. So that's where we will feel like, okay, that's the next big thing that invented inside Miro. People don't need Miro anymore. They can teleport to each other and so feel like they're sitting in the same room and co-create. So that's like top of my head. I'd love to teleport to my team at least once in a week and just to spend time together. And having a team distributed across five offices on 2 continents is pretty hard. So that's the feature I'd love to see in Miro. It's like a teleport button. Like can we get to the same room and then get back to Miro? So
Yeah.
That's
well,
the
you've got your roadmap for Miro 2025 chalked out.
Yeah, that's on that.
Cool. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. This was lovely chatting with both of you to hear so much about how businesses can innovate in the new normal. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And thank you to the audience for tuning in and for your questions and for responding to our polls. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you, everyone who was with us. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.